Welcome to the Newsmakers Podcast. I'm Billy Hollowell, and this is a show where we go behind the headlines every day to bring you an interview with a pastor, entertainer, politician, or other notable news figure. And this is a show, again, it's daily, but it's based on our weekly TV show, which is also called Newsmakers. You can watch it on the CBN News channel and also on our YouTube page. And on this show, every day, we dive deep. It's a little more longer form with one of the people who you will often see on our Newsmakers show or across the CBN News platforms. On today's Newsmakers, tensions over abortion have reached a fever pitch in the post-Roe era as concerns are mounting over allegations that the Biden administration is weaponizing the Department of Justice against pro-life activists. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the FACE Act, and that stands for the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. We'll get into what that means and what these claims truly are about the DOJ and pro-lifers. With no further ado, here is our latest segment on this important story.
Sentenced to nearly 5 years in prison for a nonviolent protest. That's what happened to a woman who sat down in front of the doors of an abortion clinic. Pro-life groups say her case is a prime example of how the Biden's Justice Department is unfairly prosecuting them. CBN's Billy Hollowell has the story.
One long-standing symbol of the abortion battle happens outside in the form of protests. Since the end of Roe v. Wade, Americans are also hearing more about the federal law protecting clinics.
The FACE Act stands for Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. It was instituted in 1994 under the Clinton administration. And if you go to the DOJ's website, its stated purpose is to protect access to reproductive health, which is a euphemism for abortion.
The law protects churches and clinics, including pro-life pregnancy centers, although critics clearly see its enforcement as one-sided.
What pro-lifers and conservatives have long claimed is that actually this act is really just a cudgel that's being used to target pro-life activists. And for the longest time, we didn't have the data to really substantiate that. And now we do.
Attorney Aaron Hawley with the Alliance Defending Freedom calls new data unearthed at the Justice Department troubling.
After the fall of Roe, there's no question that FACE Act prosecutions, FACE Act investigations have ramped up exponentially. In 2022 alone, there were over 20 prosecutions of pro-life individuals.
At the same time, records show a different approach towards dozens of arson cases at various churches and pregnancy centers.
We see very few prosecutions at those sorts of individuals who are targeting pro-life facilities. Rather, the vast majority of them are targeting pro-life individuals who are protesting or praying at abortion centers.
Van Natta says DOJ data on FACE Act violations between 1994 and 2024 is jarring.
There are approximately 211 cases, and around 97% of those cases were targeted at pro-life or anti-abortion activists.
She points to a specific increase in prosecutions under the Biden administration.
The Biden's DOJ is responsible for over a quarter of all FACE Act prosecutions in the law's 30-year history, which is pretty significant. And he's also responsible for about 24% of the cases targeting pro-life activists.
Martin Cannon at the Thomas More Society sees the same pattern.
What has changed is the frequency of the prosecutions and also a tactic that the DOJ used. Let's talk about frequency first. I've been doing this for 35 years. I've handled a couple of FACE cases over the years, and maybe two, and over 30 years. I've done about 4 in the last 5 years or so. The Biden administration literally pulled out all the stops.
When reached by CBN News, the Justice Department did not respond to specific questions about the data.
Think about just one individual, Lauren Handy. I believe her sentence was 57 months. That's over 4 years, plus 3 years of supervised release. That's an awful long time for a nonviolent sort of protest.
Cannon represents Handy and argues she didn't even violate the FACE Act.
She went into the clinic with her 9 cohorts. 2, maybe 3 of them blocked doors, very peacefully, but blocked doors. The other 7 or 8 simply sat in chairs, singing, praying, handing out some pamphlets and things. There's no decent argument to be made that this was a FACE violation.
These attorneys and others see a troubling pattern of heavy-handedness that's resulted in unfair sentencing.
Now, under Biden's DOJ, you have elderly women who are being sentenced to 2 years in prison for peacefully praying in an abortion clinic, not making violent threats, certainly not making bomb threats. So the sentencing is wildly disproportionate.
The Thomas More Society is appealing Handy's case and seeking to challenge the constitutionality of the FACE Act. We'll continue to cover this story as it unfolds. Billy Hallowell, CBN News.
Well, I hope the Justice Department wakes up to what they're doing, because what they're doing is destroying the concept of justice within American society. When you have unequal enforcement of a particular law, where only one group is targeted because of ideology, well, then you draw into question all of your prosecutions. And is this based on ideology, or is this based on the law? We have certainly seen since the Dobbs decision an increase of attacks on crisis pregnancy centers. At the same time, we haven't seen a single conviction for any of that. So they're being firebombed, they're being defaced, they're having to hire security. All of this is happening under the same Justice Department, but we're seeing no investigations that are leading to convictions. So if you have unequal enforcement, then everyone starts to now question, what in the world are you doing? Then when you add to it that you're going to have SWAT teams appear at the pre-dawn raids to arrest pro-lifers in their home in front of their children with full automatic weapons, it makes no sense to me. Why in the world are you doing that? Because you're putting things at risk that should never be put at risk. People need to have confidence in the justice system and confidence that there is liberty and justice for all. If you have unequal enforcement or ideologically based enforcement, you throw all that out the window. I hope they wake up to it, I hope they stop it, and I hope they stop it soon.
And that's all for today's Newsmakers. Now, we're going to be diving deeper on tomorrow's show, Friday, into this issue. We'll be having Erin Van Natta, she's a reporter with the Daily Caller, on to speak much deeper about what she found in that data. You heard Erin in today's show. You'll hear her even more tomorrow. Stay tuned for another episode of Newsmakers. We'll see you then.